And we're super excited to have Randy Hester with CL Buteau and Sam Suarez from Salt and Thyme joining us tonight and hosting this session. Before we get started, I'm just going to give a few updates about things going on at the foundation, and then we'll jump in. So we've started this year in 2021, moving to a weekly schedule for this series, the Imbibe series. We're alternating Wednesdays and Thursdays with a few exceptions to that rule, but you'll see those as we go along. We've got some great sessions coming up. Next week on Wednesday, February 10th, will be Yin and Yang, a regional head-to-head of 2 classic grapes. This is being hosted by our friend Mark Rayshap. And the 2 grapes that we'll be doing this head-to-head competition with are Sangiovese and a dry Riesling. So we are super excited about that. That's going to be a really fun one. So the deadline to register for that one is, we do have a deadline so we can make sure we get enough wine in. It is this coming Saturday at 2 o'clock. So be sure to register by Saturday at 2, and be sure to purchase your wines at Austin Wine Merchant before Saturday at 2 o'clock if you want to join that class. And then Wednesday, February 17th, and so that's actually 2 Wednesdays in a row, will be a new class called Old School Natural Wines, and that one's hosted by Patrick Olds with McGuire Mormon and Tony Schlotzauer from Jeffries. So that should be another fun one. We've got several more booked up that we're going to be posting soon, so just stay on the lookout there. We're also working on some small outdoor COVID-friendly events for spring, based on the feedback we've heard from all of you. So be on the lookout for some of those. And if you haven't already, please mark your calendars. The auction date has been set for November 6th at the JW Marriott. So we're very excited about that. And Hugh Davies from Schramsberg is our featured winemaker. So mark your calendars for that. And let's see, some other housekeeping notes. So you all know Hillary Weldy, our Senior Director of Events. She's on the call with us tonight. We have a number of our board of directors on the call tonight. Jerry Valdez, our president, Amber Pierce, our president-elect, Sansi Chin, our secretary. We've got some other directors. We have Paul Osborne, we have Pat Conroy. Who else? Who am I missing? Sergio is here. I think Joelle is here. I can't see names because everyone's had to call in. But everyone from our board who's here, thank you for joining us. We have another friend, Shelley Wilfong from the This is Texas podcast with us tonight. If you guys don't listen to the This is Texas podcast, This is Texas Wine podcast, I highly recommend you check it out. It's a great resource. I'm learning a ton. So thanks for joining us, Shelley. And thanks to all our members and community for joining us. We're really excited to explore the world of Grenache. And with that, I will turn it over to Randy and Sam to kick things off.
All right. Thank you so much. Very exciting. So much happening, even in COVID times. Wine and Food Foundation is getting it done. Thank you so much for inviting us to do this. I love Grenache. Anybody that knows me knows I love Grenache. And it's a thrill to be invited to do this. I knew pretty much right away when Hillary hit me up that I'd be calling Sam. Sam's my partner. He's over at he's the general manager at Salt and Thyme, and I just thought right away, well, I hope Sam wants to find wines for this Grenache tasting because he'll knock it out of the park. Sam Suarez, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for that. We are always excited about having Randy's wine in both the shop and when the restaurant was in full swing in the restaurant. So it's really cool to be able to do this sort of thing since we can't do it, in the restaurant. But love is Grenache. It was something we played with a lot for Thanksgiving. When we talk about Grenache, we'll talk about why it makes a good Thanksgiving wine. So we're really happy to be able to do something with, keep that ball rolling into the new year.
So does everybody have their wines open? Or does everybody already have a glass of wine? I mean, most importantly, before Denise started talking, right? Did everybody have a glass of wine to get us through all of our jibber jabber? Cheers to everyone. Happy New Year, and thanks for being here.
Yes, something.
So what we'll do is Sam's the expert on the choice of the wine and the choice of the food pairing, and then I'm going to talk to Grenache as a varietal and the production of Grenache, the winemaking of Grenache. And so, in order to get started, Sam, would you like to introduce this first wine?
Yeah, let's talk about. So I know we started off doing the Formonos Tinto, but I don't believe we sold any to anybody. Maybe we did, because we pivoted towards Côte de Rhône, which is going to be a little bit more traditional Grenache expression, just to have a little baseline in our system. Grenache goes very well in southern France. This one being from Rhone Valley. It does well in a warmer climate, as we'll talk about with southern France, Spain, Australia, and Texas. And Randy will get into sort of the nuts and bolts of the grape itself, but this is going to be that medium body, good fruit character, kind of peppery quality that you're looking for. This Côte de Rhône that I picked, it's 70% Grenache, so it's going to be predominantly Grenache, but has a little bit of Syrah and Carignan blended in there. That'll just add to the spice and fruit, but the Grenache is still going to be the dominating grape in here. And I think it's going to be a good way to start our kind of journey as we start talking about Grenache, and a really just simple expression. This wine also is a good place to start because it is really easy to pair with a lot of different foods. Just the easy body kind of allows it to fit into a lot of different places.
Absolutely. For my money, this is a really classic Côte de Rhône. It's showing that high Grenache character, and you drink this wine and you can see why this wine is sold all over the U.S. by the glass. It'll be the by the glass red in so many places that we visit. Wines like this wine in particular is what made me realize that I love Grenache. We were living in Napa. We were visiting San Francisco every other weekend. We were going to restaurants and we were tasting wines from all over the world. And it seemed like every night we were drinking wines. There were Côte de Rhônes and Gigondas and Baccarat and Chateauneufs and Priorates and all these Grenache-based wines. And so these are some of the names of Grenache-based wines from France and Spain, but also in Italy, Cananao, Sardinia, Cananao. Those wines need to be 90% Grenache. Here in the U.S., obviously, we do a lot of Grenache here. In Australia, we have an Australian Grenache coming up, and so. Now that Sam has us kicked off with this first wine, I kind of wanted to step back a little and talk about some of the things we're going to be looking for on Grenache, taste profile wise. Where I always talk about the general varietal character of raspberry and white pepper. And so this first wine is a blend, as Sam discussed, but the Grenache itself. We're in the family of raspberries or bright red fruit. That could be strawberry, pomegranate, currant, cranberry, but also that black pepper, white pepper, some herbal components. And Chateauneuf, you get into that Garige, which is more indicative of the terroir. Garige is more about all the herbs that are planted in the area. So you're talking thyme and sage, rosemary, lavender, juniper. Grenache is a pretty complex grape, typically very light in color, which is why it's often blended. Consumers like a darker wine. Tradition would say it's blended away as well. I really enjoy single vineyard Grenache or single varietal Grenache. In different parts of the world, it reacts differently. In my California experience, I wanted to make it with some restraint. I wanted to make it with some finesse. We have that warm California climate, pushing this varietal to some riper character. The growers that I worked with were in the lower tonnage place where I can make something of finesse. And those tend to be the Grenache wines that I prefer. I prefer the pretty side of Grenache. And so we're going to see that really in the next 3 wines for my palate. We're going to see that in this Grenache. So some quick facts about Grenache. Highly planted all over the world. Production is declining, mostly in Spain. Spanish Grenache production is down by about half. Those vines are being replaced by Tempranillo, Cabernet, Syrah. They're kind of going away from Grenache right now, but I think they shouldn't. I don't know. I'd love to have all that. Let's see. As a varietal in the vineyard, it's a very vigorous varietal. But in order to produce higher quality wine, we need to really tame that vigor down. By vigorous, I mean it wants to give, say, 10, 12 tons to the acre. This Côte du Rhône that we have in the glass is probably farmed at about 5 tons to the acre. When you go all the way to the top of the Grenache world in the Rhône, you're talking Chateauneuf at about 2 tons per acre. Priorat can be half a ton per acre. Baccarat caps their production at about roughly 2.4 tons to the acre. So Grenache performs well at low production, even though it's a very vigorous vine. It likes to be head trained, the tall stand-up vines, that spooky ghost vines and things like that. Grenache loves that. Not necessarily the trellis that goes out with the shoots that go up and the fruit that goes down. It likes to be on that head train where it's just a big tree. Performs really well like that. Also as a varietal, and this is up to you as well at home. When you pop Grenache, it's prone to oxidation. So it's going to be prone to browning. The color is going to brown out and oxidize out faster than a lot of other varietals. And that's one of the big challenges that I face in the production of Grenache. We'll cut the boring stuff there and maybe ask questions about this wine. Who's loving this wine? Who has questions about this wine right now? Yeah, Jay.
Randy, Paco is asking about Grenache in Spain. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Priorat, for me, I love the concentration that they get with that. Typically grown way down, half a ton in some instances, half a ton to the acre. And if you don't know what I mean by that, if you consider one vine only has so much root system, it only has so much dirt and water and nutrients surrounding it. So there's only so much that vine can pick up and put out. If there's 100 clusters of grapes on that vine, that finite amount of goodness gets distributed over 100 clusters. At a lower tonnage, that finite amount of goodness gets distributed over 20 clusters or 15 clusters. So you can see how the benefit of that lower production. But yeah, Grenache in Spain, is the production is down, but the quality is up, and it's so much a part of the blending in Spain, whether that's with Mourvedre, Carignan, Tempranillo. Grenache's fingerprint is all over Spain. So yeah, huge supplier, huge impact. Grenache has a huge impact in Spanish wines and winemaking.
Anyone else have questions or comments on this wine? Thoughts? Do you like it?
We should have started a glass earlier, maybe. Get everybody loosened up. I've got a bottle of Fernet in the freezer if anybody needs it.
Yay, Marjorie's loving it. Who else is loving it?
Paul.
Awesome.
All right.
Wants the Fernet.
Sam, you want to? What's that?
Looks like Paul just wants the Fernet.
Oh, for sure. Sam, you want to talk to the next wine?
Yeah, so Tim Smith, kind of took these Southern wine Rhone practices and varietals and took them completely across the world to South Australia. If you're not too familiar with Australian wines, Barossa Valley is just outside of Adelaide, just, I guess, east of Adelaide, on the southern part of Australia, and is known for big, huge, bold Syrahs, or Shiraz, as one would say. But he took that kind of more delicate approach that these Rhone varietals have, and has been doing Grenache in a very much more subtle way than a lot of the wines that are coming out of that space, are presenting. This should be a very easy transition from these two wines. I think this has a lot more of that berry character that Randy was talking about with the varietal, and is a really, just doesn't bust your palate like a lot of other Southern Australian wines that I've encountered. If you're looking at the label, I love it because he's very adamant about putting this thumbprint on, because if that thumbprint's not on, it doesn't get Tim Smith's seal of approval.
That's cool. I love that. It has my seal of approval. Yeah, that's a cool wine. It's nice when you see some restraint from Australia. There's a lot of Australian wines that I love, and Grenache to me is particularly alluring. But to see some restraint like this, especially from Barossa, that's a pretty cool wine. For me, this wine has like a mid palate sort of acid pop. It comes in kind of steady, but then there's this juice that happens in the mouth. I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's that restraint. Is anybody getting slightly reductive? I mean, I like it, but it's a little reductive. It's a little beef stew kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, and that could be from the screw cap too. That could be just the lack of oxygen there. I dig it.
I think it was the wine that changed the quickest once it was poured in the glass. It sat there for about 10, 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Evolved the quickest, calmed down, and started to offer some layers.
Agreed. Cool.
I think Christine said the violet on the nose. Yeah, that like kind of lavender, like floral note is not as characteristic, but is fun in this wine. Yeah, I get that kind of violet lavender, and it's really nice.
I think of a good Grenache as it opens. It goes from fruit to savory to spice. And that's just my observation, but when you pop a Grenache and it starts fruity, as it opens and starts to evolve, you go into that savory place, you go into that spice place, and I think that's what's made me love it over the years. It's just so, there's a complexity to it, there's a depth to it. It has good body. It's typically light in color. It is light in color. But yeah, that evolution in the glass to me is always interesting. I love any wine that evolves in the glass, it evolves in the bottle. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and Randy spoke to the idea that these like Grenaches oxidize really quickly, and for him as a winemaker, it's tricky to work with. For me, that's part of like bringing in younger wines into this sort of tasting and like drinking them fresher. And I think that despite the fact that these are all very young wines, they are still getting to develop just as soon as they come out of the bottle.
Absolutely. Does anybody get any citrus? Does anybody get citrus in Grenache at all? Sometimes some tasting notes I see have citrus rind and some grapefruit even. And on this wine, I'm getting some of that. I'm getting some of that like ruby red grapefruit zest or something. I think it's interesting for a red wine.
Orange.
Orange, yeah. Hey, Amber. Cool. And so any other comments? We're getting some orange. Anybody? Let's say this: does anybody not like this wine and care to speak up? No? Cool. Everybody loved it. Oh, what are y'all food pairing with? Sam, did you do some burgers today?
Yes, they were unfortunately, it was a long day and they got eaten. Once we get to your wine though, I do want to speak to that. I think Grenache is a very unique food pairing option.
Cool.
And allows people to have like kind of fun with it.
Yeah, we've had a lot of good luck with, we've been promising Robbie and Heather a certain dish for years. We've had a lot of good luck with a braised lamb. It's an Ina Garten recipe. It's a braised lamb and flageolet, provincial beans, stews, roasted meat, burger, obviously. Great pairing. But then Thanksgiving, I think when Sam first tasted this, our CLB Grenache, his note was Thanksgiving in a bottle. So yeah, a lot of times what I get out of Grenache is, I guess maybe I'm looking for it at this point, but I get a lot of cranberry, I get a lot of pepper, black pepper, and then those fall spices, those fall herbs, baking spices, things like that. And I think for me, I love a balance of fruit and earth and spice. I like it all. That's why I'm really impressed with this Australian wine, because a lot of times it's a big fruit bomb. And so to have a Grenache, I think that Grenache wants to be prettier. I think it wants to be treated with more restraint, maybe with more finesse is a better word. But when we can balance that fruit, that earth, that spice, I think that's when Grenache really starts to sing. Who else? Anyone? Oh, the cold front's blowing in at Tracy's house. I see the wind blowing. All right. Who has any other questions about this wine? I think this wine's going to open up for the rest of the night. So if you bought the 4 bottles and you open the 4 bottles, I would bet that this one's going to last all night long. Just saying. Oh, I think Diana just approved that.
I saw a lot of comments about it. I'm Corvining too. Just it's a little hard to get through 4 bottles a night, and I
Yeah.
also have some staff that need to drink it tomorrow.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah. Cool. Well, you want to talk about the left turn, Sam?
I'm sorry.
You want
Sorry,
to
I'm
talk
pouring
about
one.
the? You want to talk about the Marciano?
Yes. Okay. So this is the wild card, and I like that Randy asked if anybody didn't like the last one because this is again the wild card. It is fruity, acidic, funky, and has a really fun story. A really cool producer, Alfredo Maestro. Um, he kind of grew up around wine, but learned everything he knew out of a book, which is, obviously a very solid way to get yourself going, but ended up kind of taking a left turn and deciding that he, didn't want to follow normal practices and just wanted to let his grapes express, what they wanted to express. I think this is very similar to the way that Randy makes wine sometimes, which is really fun. He, lets the grapes speak for themselves and doesn't kind of bend them in a way that they need to do, or that they need to go. Um, this particular wine, if you're looking at it, and if you're not, I can show you the label. It is an extremely, uh, one might say, fun label with Martians on it. It's a cognate, but El Marciano is the Martian. And it's because the town where these grapes are from are known for their UFO sightings. And, just to lend into that kind of weird, kooky background of this town, went with that for the entire wine. This one is zippy, bright. You're gonna get that citrus, gonna get that kind of slightly underripe red fruit. It's gonna be the red fruits that Randy talked about before, but just picked earlier than the other ones. And you're gonna get some funk to it. It's gonna be, I think it's a really fun wine.
It's interesting that the alcohol is 14.5.
Oh, it does
I would
not.
not have thought. You don't think it is?
Oh, I don't think it drinks like that.
No, I don't either. I think it drinks like a 13.8, 13.5. I think the licorice is interesting too. I think we get into some of those other sort of anise kind of those are some less ripe flavors. And it could just be the case that they had 14.5 on their last label and or the label from 5 years ago and they just never changed it. Who knows? That happens.
Tracy says it's hipster Grenache.
Hipster Grenache. Tracy. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it crosses that line. I don't. You okay with that? We can discuss that over the weekend when we. Yeah, Tracy. So Tracy didn't get her Grenache today at Salt and Time. She got the other 3 wines and didn't get the one over the Grenache. So we're going to be discussing CLB Grenache over the weekend. But yeah, to me the hipster stuff tends towards sour. There's something sour. This is just my limited opinion. I'm going off topic, but to me, again, this is just a different version of this complex varietal where we do have that kind of anise kind of thing, that tobacco to me is showing in this wine. You know, that the juniper, you know, it does really come across as less right, but to me, not out of balance, out of whack.
No, more herbal for sure. Like on the herbal side of
More
Grenache.
herbal.
And that's maybe because it's picked earlier, right? But I threw that out there tongue in cheek because
Yeah. I just thought I'd pick on you.
No, go ahead.
No, Sam told me this was going to be the one in the lineup that takes a left turn. But I think it's a really cool wine. I would love to know how they make this wine. I'd also, the tasting notes, the text sheet that was on the website says that it's 100% Grenache. I look at the color and I kind of question that, but I look at the age of the vines at 70 years, and I know they're not producing a whole lot. And Grenache will produce darker colors at lower tonnage. So on one hand, I wonder if they've doctored this up with something, some Syrah maybe. It has some Syrah character. It has like a light smoky character to it. Is Paul still in? Yeah. Hey, Paul, do you get some kind of light smoky thing on this? What do you get on this wine? Do you have sound? You don't have sound. Well, Paul was going to say something very insightful. But yeah. I think it's an interesting one. I would love to have this fruit, by the way. I don't know if anybody ever, we've got a lot of folks that are connected to the industry here. If anybody ever comes across these folks, I'd love to go to Spain and make wine from this vineyard. I love the fruit on this wine.
Oh, also, this wine doesn't see oak.
Do you think the first two did?
The Australian one, definitely a little bit. And then the Côte d'Aron is neutral as old barrels.
Got it. In all of my Grenache production, I'm 0% new oak. I'm 0% oak with any real char character to it. I don't think Grenache by itself, I don't think Grenache handles oak whatsoever. I grew up making Grenache in California, and I think there's a lot of really overdone, way over extracted, way overripe. Any oak is too much. There was a lot of wines that I knew I did not want to make a wine like that. Oak to me is important on Grenache. It just stands out like a sore thumb. But in the varietal character, there can be a lightly smoky component to it, which seems more natural. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does.
Who else has comments on this one? Any thoughts? I'm glad to see Jay this time. Jay and Jackie couldn't get your video up last time. Same with Pat and Diana. We got it. Everybody's videos are up, but none of the sound is up. I love it.
Oh.
It's okay. Y'all can do smoke signals and hand signs.
There you go.
We got sound, but you don't need to hear from us.
All right. Fair enough. Cool. All right. Well,
Wrote that perhaps a Grenache dominant field blend. Jay wrote in the chat.
I'm sorry.
Jay wrote in the chat, perhaps it's a Grenache dominant field blend.
Oh, on this Spanish one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would guess too, Jay. Probably Grossolano in there.
The weed smell to little Pinot.
Oh, you should tell him that.
We heard that, Heather. Are you getting some skunk on that?
Damn that, Jerry.
Some
You're
ganja,
on mute.
some ganja skunk, and I'll put us back on mute so I can get credit.
Wow, he goes with the ganja skunk and then he mutes out. Interesting. Yeah, I can see
Are you
that.
saying that it blunts out?
Ah, nice. Cool,
Hey,
cool.
Randy, can you talk about the Spanish wine? I think you mentioned it, but we were chatting a minute ago. I read about all of them this morning. That's the one that's held in a steel tank.
That seems right.
And are there any, I was reading about it this morning, are there any Grenache in California or Texas that are doing the same? Did you say you don't use oak on yours?
Stainless for Grenache is popular.
Typical.
If I said typical, I would say neutral oak. I would say neutral, like my Grenache barrels are from 2009, 2010, 2006. Really, it's just a vessel that adds no char character to a wine, but it adds some rounding, some rounding kind of texture to that. So stainless is a great thing to do. I use stainless as a component. I can say that on my Texas Tempranillo, for instance, the stainless steel barrels as a component, as a piece of that puzzle, is really important. What it adds to that wine is very important. For my taste, for my palate, the stainless barrels versus the neutral oak barrels, for my palate, they don't stand up. So I don't go straight stainless. And this kind of speaks a little bit to you know, what Tracy was bringing with, you know, the hipster thing, or how this wine is very it's very encapsulated. I don't know how to describe it. It's very encapsulated. It doesn't it's complex, so it's not like it's lacking complexity, but it's very just right here. And that's what stainless steel will do to a Grenache. It's just here is all it is. Where a French oak barrel is more like a French guy. It's more kind of a French person, more kind of out there and expressive like that. But I would say that yes. But I would say that the geeky preference would be producing Grenache in concrete. And producing Grenache in concrete brings out a whole other ballgame. And it has to do with a certain minerality. It has to do with a certain, I know there's a conversation around minerality and what is it and does it exist and what, you know, how do you explain it? I think minerality for me has to do with how the acids interact. Because people talk about pencil shavings or wet rock, and then salinity. And so I think all of these things are indication of how the acidity is interacting with the whole solution. And concrete brings a whole different thing to the ballgame. I would say if there was a preference for Grenache makers, they would say we want to make our wines in concrete. Just a guess. We surveyed 100 Grenache winemakers.
Yeah. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, since we've already been talking about Randy's a little bit, the color difference is going to be the most striking shift into this next one.
Yeah, you want to go?
Yeah. Randy, I know you'll get to it at some point, but one question that I had for you, I'm really curious. I've had your like the Lightning Grenache, and I'm just really interested on your take on the differences in both sourcing and working with Grenaches from Texas versus California?
Sure. Yeah, you know, we had the luxury of working with old vineyards, experienced growers, people who went down the road of Grenache or went down the road of Rhone varietals in general. So a lot of folks that I bought Grenache from would only do Rhones. They would only do Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, Grenache Blanc, Picpoul Blanc, Marsanne, Roussanne, all these varietals you find in the Rhone region. It's a special kind of care. And in Napa Valley, where all of my experience and education is, it's very much a formula to get to those cult wines. And Cabernet is very predictable. You can charge a lot of money for it, and you farm it these specific ways. You get those specific results, and that's what, you know, years and years and years of consumers were looking for. With the Rhone varietals, it's a different ballgame, and you had to go out. So I didn't even have any Napa fruit. I had to go out to all surrounding counties, and so at one point we had 8 different single vineyard Grenache wines from different counties all around Northern California. From, well, I say Northern California, but we had some Paso fruit, but, you know, Paso Robles, Sonoma, Mendocino, El Dorado, Amador, Lake County, Santa Clara. We were all over the place. But the main theme there was vines that were established, older, not 20-year-old vines, 50-year-old vines, maybe not ancient vines like you might see in Lodi, but also the oldest producing-ish vines here in Texas are going to be in like the 5-year range. And Grenache acts differently than other varietals. By year 4, on a lot of varietals, you can start to experiment. But first year, second year, third year fruit, you drop it. You don't even use the fruit. By year 4, you get anxious, you lose your patience, you want to start seeing, okay, what does my Merlot do? By year 5, you kind of think, okay, I have kind of a mature vine, it can put on a full crop. Grenache is like 10 or 11 years. And so this Grenache that's in the glass, this 2019 was a year 4. It was that year 4 where the farmer says, I'm getting impatient. What is my land going to produce? And so you see the light color compared to the others. You still get that typical Grenache character that I'm looking for with that. My process typically turns like cranberry pomegranate and then also black pepper. Those are the 2 main threads that go through a lot of my Grenache wines, but I still only produce them with one method. And so, Sam, to compare the California to what I'm able to do today, the process is the same. And I think your question comes from the difference in the outcome. And so what I did from the start was I knew I loved Grenache. I knew I loved, the Gigondas, the Baccarat, the Priorat, the Chateauneufs. I also like that old world European sensibility of like Beaujolais and Burgundy, and so that's how I approached my Grenache winemaking. So I include whole clusters in the fermentation. I bleed Grenache. I pull juice away from the skins of Grenache. Grenache lacks color right off the bat, and the more juice I take away from it, the more the solids can color the juice that remains. So, and I could go on and on about the process, but I use the same process for all the Grenache that I produce, because then I can compare vineyard to vineyard to vineyard to vineyard. And that to me is when it gets interesting. So this is an indication of in my limited opinion, a varietally correct Grenache. Grenache is going to have a light color. It's going to have a bigger body than the color would suggest. It's going to be in that crunchy red fruit place of that pomegranate, cranberry, raspberry. Some of the wines that we've had so far can go into that kind of stewed strawberry place. But this is a younger vine. This is starting to show some of that black pepper, and then some of those herbs. But I think the difference is, if I could erase the last 10 minutes of blabber, it would simply be the age of the vine and the established, where the vines there were established and here they're not quite yet. That makes sense?
No, it absolutely does.
But I mean, I love the aromatics. I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to make this wine in our home state, because several years ago, this is not bad towards Kim McPherson, but he knows that my personal brand in California was all Grenache, and he told me straight up, you will never be able to make Grenache here. It doesn't do well here. It's only good for rosé. And of course, immediately I wanted to know, why is that? And so what I came to find out is it's the crop load. It's the growers growing it at a much higher crop load than Grenache wants to be. So my grower here in Texas, we're 3.5 to 4 tons to the acre. So if you go back to that Côte de Rhône that we had at the beginning, Côte de Rhône is in 5 tons per acre place. Châteauneuf-du-Pape is in a 2 ton per acre place. Priorat can be a half. My guy in Seminole, he's an organic cotton farmer. He gets it. He gets it at a high level. He farms responsibly and sustainably. And we've got this at about 3.5 to 4 tons to the acre. So as these vines mature, so will this wine.
I think that really speaks to what I mentioned before. You're not trying to make lightning Grenache. You are working in the same way, but not trying to shove it into a place that I wouldn't say wouldn't want it to be. This is exactly what you should want it to be, but not make it something it's not. Let these young grapes kind of be young grapes.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I don't buy any fruit that's younger than that 4th leaf. And I even consider the 4th leaf, most farmers would tell me that's their 5th leaf. It's the year you plant, it's the following harvest. So it could be a year and a half. That's my year 1. So yeah, absolutely. You know what we don't know about Texas wine is what the hell our terroir is, right? It's a state that's bigger than France. What's the size of Burgundy? What's a city in Texas the size of Burgundy? Like Tyler? I don't know, but we don't know the terroir of different places yet, because we lack consistency in the vineyard and we lack consistency in the winery. And so if I can produce Grenache from this vineyard for many years in a row, I'm going to do it with the same procedure, then we can start to get some consistencies. We can start to figure out, kind of what some of our characteristics are. Until then, yeah, what I need to do is I need to put traditional winemaking on it. I need to do my research. I know the chemistry and I have experience, but what I need to do is research the tradition of winemaking for the varietals that I think will work here, including Tempranillo, including Mourvedre, and proof is in the glass, including Grenache. And so find that traditional winemaking process, link up to that, then the Texas fruit is going to show me what it's going to be. And I absolutely love that, because it's a discovery. I don't know. I have no idea. I knew what I was getting into with California. With California, I did my research. Research in this industry is drinking a bunch of wine. drank a bunch of California Grenache and Grenache-based blends, and then decided, what will my approach be? Well, my approach ended up being really from a lot of Kermit Litch wines. It's going to be Beaujolais, it's going to be Burgundy, it's going to be hands-off and native and whole clusters and get wild and get freaky. I do the same here in Texas, except I did no research. I didn't go do all the Spanish tasting and what do a bunch of Tempranillos taste like. I want to know what Texas Tempranillo tastes like, and in this case, I want to know what this Texas Grenache tastes like, and it comes out varietally correct, but with its own character. So
There you go.
there you go. How's that? Is that enough? Is that enough? I think Paul's asleep over there. Easily best Texas Grenache. Ah, thanks, Paul. Wait, Paul's awake. Hi, Paul. I love you, Paul. Thanks.
The same ball. Oh, there.
No, there he is.
So
Yeah.
obviously this has got to be everyone's favorite, just because just because. So let's take a poll, and I need to switch my view so I can see everyone now, and see of the first three, because again, Randy's is obviously going to be the number one choice. Of the first three, whose is everyone's favorite? Who picks the first one
That's me.
of the first three? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, great. And then what was the second one? The second one was the Australian one? No, the second one was I gotta look at my list. Well, the second one, the Tim Smith, right? Tim Smith was the second one.
Yeah, that's the Australian one.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
voting
the
for
second one was the Marciano, the Spanish one.
No.
the third one.
Oh,
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the second one.
I have it in the wrong order.
Second one was
My fault.
Australian.
Okay, who votes for Tim Smith?
I like that one because it surprised me. It was the most surprising.
All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on Tim Smith, 6 on Tim Smith. Okay, and then on number 3, the Maestro. Who is that? Anyone on the Maestro? 1.
Susan.
Looks like just 1 on the Maestro. Okay. Well, that was an interesting mix. And of course, everyone, I mean, seriously, this is Randy. I remember the first time I tasted it and I was completely blown away. I didn't know what to expect, but it definitely blew my mind the first time I tried this. It's absolutely one of our go-tos now. And by the way, and I'm just going to go ahead and give you a shameless plug. If you're not a part of the CL Buteau Wine Club, I cannot recommend it highly enough. There's so much to choose from, and they're super open to customizing your packages. As Brooke knows, I always like to mix mine up a little bit, but it's a really great wine club, so I highly recommend it. What does everyone else think? Comments, questions, thoughts?
Jay had a question.
Yeah, Jay had a question about what makes Desert Willow so special, and oh right, yeah. So the CLB Grenache is a Desert Willow vineyard. The farmer's name is Rob Warren. He's the organic cotton farmer out of Seminole, Texas, south of Lubbock, closer to New Mexico. You know, Jay, we don't know yet really that we can't, there's not a lot of sites that we can pinpoint. What makes it so special is Rob. Rob has his day job. He's very successful at it, and he has this 10 acres of Grenache. He's got 5 Grenache and 5 Mourvedre. He's got these 10 acres. That's his hobby, and that's the next thing he wants to kick ass on. That's his hobby. That's what makes him smile, that's what he wakes up early to go take care of, and then works late to go take care of. What makes it special so far is the farmer. And so he's exactly the kind of person that I want to be working with, and he gets it. He gets it, and he lets me work with him, and he lets me ask him why, and he asks me why. So it's a very much a team effort, which is unique. Is unique here in Texas. It's very much a team effort between winemaker and grower, which is very cool. And then Denise, I think there was an extra. I think Pat offered up Lightning Grenache as one of the options. He's shameless plug, shameless. But let's see. There you go. Yeah, Thanksgiving wine. Who else? Any other questions? Sam, anything else to add to the whole thing?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to how much I like using this wine, yours in particular, but Grenache as a whole with food. It's that kind of brightness and spiciness, especially the black pepper that I think we're getting a lot with this wine that we're drinking right now. That makes it an easy meat wine. Cuts through a heavy meal, cuts through fat, and then complements it as well. It's like putting a really good, it's one of the reasons you would put mushroom and Swiss on a burger, because you want that cut right through it, and then you want that earthy spiciness to kind of complement it. And this works really well. I thought it was a really easy sell for Thanksgiving. Like Randy brought it up before, like the cranberry notes. It's cranberry sauce. It's cranberry sauce that somebody already made and then is also alcoholic. So, get rid of that can when you can just have this your turkey.
Which is also necessary when you're with your family at Thanksgiving.
Yes, that might not have happened this year for some of us. The heavy food definitely did.
Yeah, and
Well, cool.
Jay brought up the tasting room, and that's another recommendation and shameless plug is definitely check out the CL Buteau tasting room, and you'll also get the benefit of Wine for the People. If you go to that tasting room, they had us out, our team out for a little site visit and tasting, and it's just delightful. You definitely need a reservation, especially if it's a nice day. So make your reservations. It's a great way to spend the day, and it's super close in. It's on the board. It's right on the border of Austin and Dripping. So you're not really having to go too far. So highly recommend it. Great way to spend a weekend day.
Yeah, it's so nice to see so many people here who have already been out. Tony and Jeff and Michael, and I know there's others I'm missing. It's so nice. This is something I don't know. We've only been back in Texas for 4 years, and neither of us have ever lived in Austin, and have wanted to since we knew what Austin was. And it's very cool to be some part of this community. And so I know this is the cheesy part, and I would have said this with or without wine in my belly, but it's very cool to see so many folks that are here than we see all the time. We see Susan and Ned and Robbie and Heather and everybody. It's very, very, very appreciated. And anyway, when you come to the tasting room, we're going to welcome you to our home, and we're going to make sure you have a good time.
It was one of the best experiences we've had. We were there Sunday. It was wonderful, really low key, beautiful. The wine is wonderful, and to have both winemakers there talking about it, it was a great experience. So I would highly recommend it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yes.
Well, I know Tony had fun too, because she had an old fashioned before she came.
Oh. No tattling.
Oops, sorry.
We get the scoop here at the Imbibe series. Awesome. Well, any other questions, comments? Anything to add? Well,
I want to ask Victoria to tell us more about what the food truck at the tasting room is gonna be like.
yes.
If she can hear me, maybe she can't hear. She was.
Victoria?
She may not have access.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we have
I can't figure out how to unmute. Let me see if I can help.
oh, got it.
I don't see. That's weird.
So
Yeah.
Victoria, if you get in, just interrupt me. But yeah, we have a food truck. The truck is actually parked there now. It's incredible. Victoria, are we saying who's gonna be with us yet? Sure. Okay.
Go ahead.
So the food truck is owned by Barclay Stratton, and he's coming out of the kitchen of Lenoir, and he has these great experiences, and then he hasn't been able to open yet because he's also been in Nashville opening a steakhouse there. But he's worked on so he's got all these great experiences. He's been working on his menu. The menu is crazy. It's like toad in the hole with fondue and truffle honey, and it's crab rangoons, and it's avocado fun stuff that pairs with wine. Yeah. And so he's legit. He actually said to us really early on, because he's kind of a nerd, which I love. He told us early on, let me know if I get too chefy. And so I'm like, perfect. That's perfect. So yeah, so we have that coming. Of course, we still have all the cheese plates and charcuterie, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a good time, especially when he gets rolling. We're gonna get into. I mean, Austin in the spring. It's gonna be a good time, and it's all outdoors, and so.
And Randy, can you tell everyone when what the hours of the tasting room are?
Right. So we're open Thursday by appointment, Friday 1 to 7, so that way we can stay open a little bit later on a Friday night, and then Saturday, Sunday 12 to 6. Saturday, Sunday 12 to 6.
And the food truck will be the same hours.
Food truck's basically the
Friday.
same. Yeah. And then, and Fridays, Saturday, Sundays have been booked. We've had every table full most of the day. So if you want in, obviously, everybody here is friends and family. But the pro tip day is to come on a Friday. Or if you want to come in like Saturday at noon, Sunday at noon, that kind of thing, earlier is better. Austin doesn't wake up till 10 anyway. So, by 2 o'clock, we're pretty booked up.
Great. Well, I hope to see you all out at the tasting room. We'll be rescheduling our rain date very soon. So thank you, Randy and Sam, for this class. It was a great class. Excited to continue our series. Hope to see you all next week. And thanks for everyone for joining us. Sorry about the technical difficulties. We do have this recorded, and we'll send that out to everyone soon. So thanks again, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Have a good night.
Bye.